You have 10 calls with prospects. Some of them go well. Some of them are like, not so well. Drop all the transcripts in. What did I cover? What was the tone of the conversations? Why did these ones go well? What didn't happen in these conversations that didn't go so well? I didn't get the outcome that I wanted. So using it to also troubleshoot and like you said, coach yourself up to use that moving forward. That's a massive, like, you can't get that feedback anywhere else.
Initiating becoming a hiring machine sequence in 3, 2, 1.
Hey everyone, it's Sam Keenly, and welcome back to Becoming a Hiring Machine. This is the show dedicated to fixing recruitment by going beyond saying what needs to change and instead teaches you how to make that change. Today we have a great Tactical Tuesday episode ahead of us, but before we get into that, I want to tell you a little bit about the show. Essentially, we have shows within the show here. Some days we have interviews with industry thought leaders, now that we're shaking up the space, while other days we cover trending topics. Stop by every Tuesday like today for a Tactical Tuesday episode where we go deep on how to do something that's going to help you drive better results in your day to day. And occasionally you get a mic drop episode from Matt where he shares something that he's been thinking about within the recruitment space and wants you to know. As a reminder, if you like the content that we share here on the show, make sure that you subscribe for more. All right, today's Tactical Tuesday. Fun fact. A study known as the forgetting curve conducted by Ebbinghaus found that humans remember only 50% of what they hear after 1 hour. Now imagine that you finally got that prospect you've been going after for a few months to jump on a call, and right after it, you had a candidate screening call. So you wrap up the screen, you go to send a follow-up note back to your big prospect, and you found that there's huge gaps in your notes and memory. So for today's Tactical Tuesday, we're going to talk about why this scenario is going to be a thing of the past for you. AI Notetakers are solving for this, and when you have one that's natively built into your ATS CRM like Loxo's, that's where you really reap the benefits on both the client and candidate side of things. So here to talk through this one is one of your favorite Tactical Tuesday co-hosts, Vivien. Vivien, welcome.
Hello.
All right, so AI Notetakers, and this we've been talking about account-based prospecting, ABP, for a while. The shift from reactive to proactive, focusing on relationships versus volume, like. AI Notetaker is kind of, it's not a silver bullet in any of this, but this is one of those that almost feels like a cheat code when you think about if you are focusing on the relational side of things and how you can leverage it. So, before we get into a couple points on it, like just what are your initial thoughts on this?
I'm a big fan of AI helping people connect more and get kind of out of the way of time-consuming admin type stuff. So whether that is actually typing up the notes, because whenever I write notes from a meeting, it's random keywords that when I look at them, it makes sense as to what I'm thinking. But if I were to send those to you, you'll be like, these are Egyptian hieroglyphs. I have no idea what you are trying to talk about. This is like a mystery to me. So for me to then write everything out so that it makes sense for anyone else trying to read it and add the necessary context, that's going to take so much time away from me. And the other piece to that is if I have to talk to you and also take notes at the same time, I'm going to pay less attention to you because my attention has to be slightly diverted to what kind of notes do I actually need to write down to remember this particular piece that was memorable that I do need to remember. So the way that you're thinking and engaging in that conversation is always going to be a little bit different just because of that. So if you can give your brain kind of that like peace of mind and that rest of like, don't worry about taking notes, then you can really just immerse yourself in the conversation. And from a recipient perspective, whether that is a hiring manager or a candidate, that's a very different interaction and experience that they will have with a recruiter, where as of right now, you'll stand out as somebody who's unique, who actually listens and asks really thoughtful questions, as opposed to, hold that thought, what was that again? I need to scribble this word down really, really quickly. And then you lose your train of thought because your brain is trying to do multiple different things. And as much as I think I'm good at multitasking, my brain really just has 100% bandwidth. And if I'm taking notes, that means 20, 30, 40, 50% are dedicated towards that, which means that percentage is not available to whoever I'm having a conversation with.
Yeah, you're missing big context cues that you could be picking up. There's so many other things that happen between the lines. So yeah, that's such a strong point. And aside from just that forgetful curve, like that's something I used to be notorious for. I'd be like, oh my god, I told someone I was going to follow up and I have hieroglyphs to myself that I even can't figure out what that meant. So you have that side of it. When you do remember or you are taking notes, we found that recruiters spend hours per week on post-call documentation. So what what else could you do with that hours? As we've been talking about, like, how do you go develop relationships? How do you prospect? Like, you can reutilize it in such a better way. So I'd say a good chunk of our customers are at this point familiar with AI note taking tools or have explored it, tried it themselves. But like some of the core reasons, like the values that come from this. So first one I'd say is like, it's able to just, what you've talked about there, it captures the meeting notes effortlessly. Like you don't have to do that awkward clacking on one side of the computer because someone's taking notes, or the hold on, what did you say? I missed that part. That's all gone. It's automatically transcribing that entire conversation for you. But then it goes a step further. It's also going to summarize that for you. It's going to sync it to your ATS CRM, your central source of truth. So you have that documented in perpetuity across your team that you can see it as well. But that summary, like you said, it's not trying to be like, what's this mean for them? It's putting it all in one place. Even it can spin up like, what's that first draft look like for you? I'll never say send that summary as it is. Like, take it, polish it up. Don't just spit it out as is. It's probably going to spell someone's name wrong in it. You definitely don't want to send that to the prospect if their name's Jenny with an I, but it's spelled Jenny with a Y. Be mindful of things like that. But the last one is, especially when you think about it from the prospect or client side, is like clients expect clarity. So sloppy write-ups, missed action items, like those are a thing of the past with all this. You're on top of it. This is representative of what it's like to work with you if you were to move forward. So let's talk about some of like the compelling reasons. What's this going to do when you are, hopefully you're embracing the ABP philosophy, but even if you're just doing this for business development in general, like let's talk about some of the different advantages or pros that are going to come from this. So I'll start with the first one and then we'll just ping pong it back and forth. For me as a marketer, I'm always looking at like competitive advantage. How can you set yourself apart from anyone else? So it's no secret that it's a competitive space for agencies, for executive search firms, for everything like that. The huge advantage that you get here is that you're able to provide faster follow-ups. You're able to develop a higher amount of trust with the level of documentation that you provide. And it's a lot more polished than the people like you and me last year that would have been trying to transcribe our hieroglyphs and sending it over in just this okay bulleted point list. So that level of professionalism and the speed at which you're able to operate, that comes across to them pretty quickly there. So that's one way that you're able to stand out and a benefit for you. So what's another one that you see?
So I would actually add something to what you just said, to your point, before I jump into mine. It's when you have the AI summary, you can actually leverage all of that and plug it into AI to really say, okay, this is the experience that the candidate has had, and this is the job description. And I've talked about this like a million times before. The job description tells you exactly the problem that particular role needs to be able to solve for. And from the summary of the call that you had with a candidate, if you plug those two into AI, it can spit out a summary, a presentation, a highlight that you can send over that exactly says how this candidate has previously solved this problem with XYZ results, and how they could potentially apply that to this particular problem, company, environment, whatever it might be. So it's a lot more tailored. And when it really makes it, when your write-ups and your submission notes are very obviously stating why this candidate is excellent, not why you think this candidate is excellent, but what is that candidate going to solve for the hiring manager from the hiring manager's perspective, like really just smack them with common sense in the face kind of a thing. That's really going to like do it. You're going to get responses from hiring managers because they're going to want to talk to that particular candidate because you've made it so insanely obvious that this is the one that they want to talk to. Because usually recruiters will write out, well, it has the experience that you said you wanted, it is within your comp range, they are willing to go into the office. But after every single one of these bullet points, a hiring manager is going to be like, okay, so what? What difference does that make for me and the problem that I'm trying to solve by making this hire? So if you can flip it that way, that is going to take things to the next level.
Yeah, that's so well put. Okay.
But in terms of the point that one of the advantages that I was going to mention is you can be a lot more present during the call. You can actually pay attention, and you can pay attention to different cues. And what this does is instead of you scribbling notes, you can pick up on some of the things where you actually want to dive a little bit deeper and ask some follow-up questions, because usually on a call, recruiters are so busy with kind of going through like the mental checklist of questions that they need to ask. Sometimes they will completely miss out on actually asking follow-up questions and getting a little bit more deeper into something, because it just goes right above their head because they're so busy trying to get all the notes that they need. And so this is where it gets a little bit distracted, but they're also starting to miss really critical information that actually would be really beneficial for the write-up and how they present the candidate to hiring managers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Such a, I don't know, simple one that makes such a large impact. So, data geek over here. I touched on this a little bit ago, but just having like a central source of truth and the power that comes to this. So having it all in one place that's shareable. But the other side of it is, you don't want to see my chicken scratch. I'm looking down at my notebook as we're talking about AI Notetakers. Different use case. But there's times when I'll write a number. I'm like, ooh, is that a 4 or a 9? And so say you're talking to a hiring manager. It's like, hey, I'm ready to extend an offer to this candidate for $90,000. Like, wait, did that say 90,000 or 40,000? Because you can't tell from your handwriting. But if you have something like this, you can come back to it later on. It's got it already cataloged for you. You don't have to have that awkward conversation. Hey, I either missed this in the conversation or I wrote it down wrong. Can you clarify it for me? Like that, again, that's something that you never have to worry about again. So little things like that, even with the detailed side of it, it's almost, that's one of those where I say, it's like the AI Notetaker's like, dude, I got your back. Hold on. Just let me go and research it for you.
For sure, especially if you're doing like 5 to 10 back-to-back screening calls for one position, they all start to blur together, and your notes, they start to go all over the place. And it's, I hate to say it, but it has happened to me before where I just wrote down the number in like the top section of the paper when I was actually at the bottom section of the paper, and then I had no idea who that comp was actually for. So I had to reach out to everybody that I had notes on that particular page, and that was not a whole lot of fun. Learn from my mistakes, guys.
Yeah. Please learn from us. So, okay. So those are a couple that are from kind of the ABP business development side of it. I know you're always thinking about other use cases as well. So what are a couple others that you're geeking out about this with?
Sometimes as you're listening to specific things. And so sometimes, depending on how you set up the template for the AI note taker, it can actually start picking up on some things that you may have missed because you were focusing on picking up specific things. So that can be like a sentiment, that can be like an overall kind of like tone. Some AI note takers are able to start picking up on these things, but also little details that when you revisit it, you're like, oh yeah, you are right. Because ultimately as a recruiter, you have a checklist of things that you need to ask and want to pay attention to, but there are certain things that are a little bit in your blind spot that are still very valuable. So for example, if they constantly mention, I really want to spend more time with my kids, that is not something that you're necessarily focusing on at that particular moment because you're really wanting to just drill into their experience so you can really do a great write-up for the hiring manager. But the fact that they want to spend more time with their kids is going to play a factor when it comes time for the offer and what is actually important to them, what one of their motivators is to actually make this change. And so this is where you might have missed that. But if the AI note taker is able to pick up on it and you see it in the summary, you can actually check in on that and be like, hey, from our last conversation, it sounds like you really want to hang out with your kids a little bit more. What does it actually look like to you? What is your current state? What is your ideal state? And let's figure out how can we actually present this and figure out, is this the right role for this? Is this going to enable you to do it? Or does it make sense to kind of like look for something else? Because otherwise that's going to fall apart during the offer stage or guarantee period. And that is like a recruiter's worst nightmare. So you want to get ahead of these things early on, and note takers can help you maybe pick up on this if you set up the templates correctly.
Yeah. And as you say templates, even so, Paul Stancic's been on the podcast a couple of times. He has an article I love. He calls it like, boss your AI around. And it's essentially like, I would drop this transcript in, take your notes, like what's important to the candidate. You know, you were talking about why they're such a great fit. They check all these skills boxes, the experiences. That's where I would just go in and ask the LLM, the AI, and just be like, what am I missing? What was brought up a couple of times on their side that I didn't include in here? I didn't emphasize enough, or that I'm overemphasizing, and use that to gut check yourself as well. But that's because you have the entire transcript. You're not relying on just those couple bullet points that you made in your notebook, but you've got the whole conversation. And it can read through that in the snap of a finger to go and be like, hey, actually, family's really important to them. So looking back at their offer of 5 PTO days per year, that might cause an issue for this person.
Yep, exactly. And it's so easy to leverage AI to actually self-improve in those cases, because then you can literally ask AI, okay, what are like really obvious things that I'm just missing? What are some of my blind spots? What could I do better in the next one moving forward? And this is ultimately then going to help make a way better experience for whoever you're interacting with. So even if you have note takers join call with contacts and hiring managers that you're wanting to work with, they can actually capture all of those notes, and then you can also reflect back with AI and say, okay, what are some of the things and cues that I missed that I could have actually picked up on, ask some follow-up questions, because then you can still say, hey, I was thinking about our conversation and I wanted to talk to you a little bit more about this one thing that you mentioned. And then you can still build into that. It makes it sound like you are listening and genuinely caring and paying attention, and not in like a manipulative, sociopathic kind of a way, but just when you're absorbing a lot of information, there's information overload when you're on screening calls and discovery calls with potential clients, or you already have the agreement in place. There's so much information that you're trying to digest. It's going to happen that you're missing out on a couple of cues, but you can have AI help you reflect back a little bit, but then also come up with a really good, thoughtful follow-up that is really personalized, that really says, I've been thinking about this conversation and reflecting on it. I would love to dive a little bit more deeper into this particular thing that we talked about. And that's going to have a different level of relationship and care, where they're going to think about you and work with you very differently.
Yeah, I love that. That's so impactful. Yeah, it's like, oh my God, Vivien was listening to me. This doesn't happen. Usually you're just like, what jobs are you working? Can I work it? Like, what's your rate? So, you also touched on something in there. I hadn't even thought about this until we were getting into it, but using it for your own coaching, especially when you're thinking about this from the account-based prospecting. You have 10 calls with prospects. Some of them go well. Some of them are like, not so well. Drop all the transcripts in. What did I cover? What was the tone of the conversations? Why did these ones go well? What didn't happen in these conversations that didn't go so well? I didn't get the outcome that I wanted, or what was happening that didn't, like, what were the rabbit holes, or the objections, or anything else? So using it to also troubleshoot and like you said, coach yourself up to use that moving forward. That's a massive, like, you can't get that feedback anywhere else. And also this way, it's like, it's different when the feedback comes from AI versus your manager. If you're working for yourself, like, you don't have someone provide that with you. It's less like, you don't take it personally. You're just like, oh, like, duh, why didn't I do this? Such a no-brainer. So using it on that mechanism as well is honestly, like, that type of coaching used to be, you have to pay someone to just shadow your calls, listen to you, give you that type of executive or sales coaching. Now it's free. You just have to know how to prompt it.
That, and if I know that somebody is listening to my calls or is about to listen to my calls, I act differently.
Yep.
So the data that would be input into that call and the kind of feedback that I would get by default would be very different, just because I'd be a little bit more self-conscious. So it wouldn't even be an accurate assessment. But if you know it's just you and you don't have to re-listen to the call, you can just grab the transcript, prompt AI to help you figure out what went wrong and what's happening and give you a little bit of coaching. It doesn't feel as personal. And then personally, I wouldn't get as defensive. And when people get defensive, they don't take feedback at all. It's going to go right above their head, and it's just because they feel attacked. And so they're not absorbing, they're not receiving anything. And with AI, it's a little bit more impersonal, and it's you asking AI for feedback. So you are open to it. So you're more receptive to it. And then you can actually make those changes. And when AI like tells it to you, ChatGPT, the way that OpenAI has like set up ChatGPT, it's like your bestie, it's your cheerleader. It says things very, very softly, even when it's calling you out.
Oh yeah. And even, that's what, I've been playing around with the different LLMs lately. I don't know why it took me so long, but I finally started using Claude, just looking into it. The conversational style and tone there, even as it's very different from GPT. I don't know. That's been a fun. I've been liking that one because I've been doing a lot of writing, and just seeing how it operates with me there versus the GPT or any of the others. So, man, I could geek out on this all day with you, but I feel like this is probably a good spot for us to stop. This is a Tactical Tuesday. It's not a deep dive, but any other final thoughts before we wrap this one up?
Give AI note takers a try, just because you will see a massive difference, and it's gonna make your life a million times easier just from an administrative standpoint. So whatever the cost of an AI note taker is, there's a really, really big ROI on it, just because now you don't have to take the notes, you don't have to summarize everything. You're going to have all of the different notes. You can create a specific template. You can get feedback for it. So the value of that and the ROI that you can get out of it, if you really make the most out of it, is so absolutely incredible. It is a very low investment for the ROI that you can get out of it. And then you actually get to talk to more people. You don't have to take as many notes. It makes your life a whole lot easier. You can become the absolute best recruiter in existence. And it's 1000% worth it. Out of all the AI tools, that's probably the one that I would say that's a no-brainer, guys. Jump on it.
I'm going to quote you on those. It's going to make you the best recruiter in existence, and you're getting 1,000% ROI. Listeners, you heard it here first. If you don't see any of those happen, take it up with Vivien. We'll reimburse you for whatever your time was worth in listening to this podcast. This is not signed by legal. This is not a valid offer.
April
this was
Fools,
fun.
guys.
April Fool's, August something. Well, as always, appreciate you coming in and chatting on this one. This was a fun one as we start to think about, just the landscape is changing so fast with AI, how it all comes together, how you can use it as a recruiter. So I'm looking forward to next week's episode when who knows what we'll be geeking on, but it'll be something fun. All right, well, let's get into the final spiel. As we wrap, Becoming a Hiring Machine is a production of Loxo. If you like this episode, but you're not sure where to go next, we do have a link to a similar one. You can find that in the show notes within the description of your favorite podcast streaming platform, as well as on our website. Full video episodes are available on YouTube. If you ever have questions, send our way, podcast@loxo.co. And lastly, if you did enjoy this episode, which I know you did, please make sure you leave us a quick rating in your podcast streaming platform. It takes you 3 seconds, and it's going to help other recruiters like you to find us. So, all right, everyone, that's the show. That's another great Tactical Tuesday with Vivien. Until next time, bye, y'all.